period, Canada. How are you today? So we're trying some new stuff. You're going to have to let me know how it's going. Like, I need the feedback because besides watching my own stuff and kind of trying just to figure it out, we need the feedback. So, like, if the audio levels aren't right, if there's other problems, whatever, just let me know, like in the comments, or you can send me a message like through my email, ehrenm@gmail.com. And yeah, so what we thought we would do today, which we have not done, is take a review, like a look at reviewing what has been going on. And I thought a fun way to do that would be to watch the shorts that I have made. I've made over 600 shorts, guys. Over 600. That's a wild amount. And yeah, so we're gonna get that going. I think here we are. Justin Trudeau was back in Parliament after playing hooky for a couple of days. After the Nazi scandal, Pierre Poilievre tore him up. Let's check it out.
It was the personal responsibility of the Prime Minister to invite President Zelensky to the floor of this House of Commons. It was his personal responsibility to make sure it was a diplomatic success. It was his personal responsibility to continue to lead the government that has the security, intelligence, and diplomatic agencies that could have and should have vetted all individuals who were present and recognized. Yet this Prime Minister allowed for a monumental, unprecedented, and global shame to unfold in this chamber. Will he take personal responsibility for this shame and personally apologize on behalf of himself?
Poilievre tore him up. Like, subscribe, more videos to come. No matter what you think, it's more fun when Justin Trudeau is in the House of Parliament, rather than when he's playing hooky as he has been the last couple of days.
We're going to chop the carbon tax, Mr. Speaker. This Liberal member, just like his NDP coalition partners, have betrayed Albertans. Albertans who are ripped off by this carbon tax, just like people right across the country. That member, just like the NDP, decided to betray his constituents and vote for the Prime Minister's plan to dig deeper in the pockets of hardworking people. Will they abandon their reckless plan to quadruple the tax to 61 cents a litre and vote for our motion to do it next week?
Poilievre slams Trudeau and the Liberals again. Like, subscribe for more videos. Grocery prices pretty expensive, right? This is what Trudeau had to say in question period about the grocery problem.
Mr. Speaker, we see that the Leader of the Opposition is always ready to play political games, because a few weeks ago we moved forward with the Affordable Housing and Groceries Act, which will help build more rental homes and increase competition, including amongst the largest groceries. But instead of working with us to move this forward before Thanksgiving, the Conservative opposition chose to obstruct debate around these measures. We're going to continue to stay focused on helping Canadians while they stay focused on playing political partisan games.
Do you believe him? I don't. We'll be watching. Subscribe. I'll let you know when we've got stories to share. Remember we tried to cover this story? We're going to bring it back. Alan Ray has dropped a bomb on Parliament today. The orphan MP. Governor General scandal coming. Let's check it out.
Mr. Speaker, after the Governor General's lavish spending on international travel, we've learned her office spent over $117,000 on dry cleaning since 2018, an average of $1,800 per month. For fun, I did some calculations based on the going rate for these services. At the rates she's been spending, that's an average of 3 outfits a day, 365 days a year. Why doesn't the government cut her $33 million budget? What are they waiting for? Because she's clearly incapable of managing taxpayers' money seriously and responsibly.
More to come. Like and subscribe. We'll follow up.
Mr. Speaker, words cannot express the grief and pain being felt by the Mirren and Harris families, as well as the entire community of Winnipeg. They're looking to find healing and closure right now. Our approach must be victim-centered, trauma-informed, and Indigenous-led to support healing. That's why today we announced $740,000 more in additional funding to explore in greater detail the next steps of a search. And as we announced in our last budget, we are moving forward on a red dress alert as well, Mr. Speaker.
I don't know if I believe that. Do you? Like, subscribe. The Honourable MP from Thornhill, Melissa Lantsman. She's fun. Check her out. Funny hair. Check it out.
This is exactly what the Prime Minister does when he's desperate and flailing, not confident about his leadership. Canadians in other parts of the country now have one more reason to regret voting for them. Like in Northern Ontario, where a minister at the cabinet table has sold out her own neighbours and left them out in the cold. So will she vote with those who sent her to this place and scrap the tax on all home heating, or will she vote with the Prime Minister and remind Thunder Bay that she's just not worth the cost?
Such a big cowlick. So Melissa Lantsman's a firecracker. Biggest cowlick I've ever seen. Like and subscribe. We've got lots of videos coming. We're doing Canadian politics and having fun. What do you think of Poilievre? He goes pretty hard at Trudeau right here. Check it out.
Fast that Canadians didn't want champagne for Thanksgiving. They just want some food. And I did a little bit of price shopping on that for him.
This is Arif Irani. He's the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of Canada. And this guy is so hard to trust. Just listen to the way he speaks.
What I want for Christmas is for that member of the Justice Committee and his colleagues to end their antics and stop playing with people's lives. I'm talking about David and Joyce Milgaard's law. That's a law that will change the way we address wrongful convictions and end systemic discrimination. Reversing a wrongful conviction should never be a partisan matter, but filibusters by that member and his colleagues at the committee has made it exactly that. These delays mean that potentially wrongfully convicted people, like Indigenous people and Black people languishing in our prisons, will just languish a little longer. That's reprehensible behavior, Madam Speaker, and that needs to be corrected immediately.
That is a hard voice to trust. It just is. Like and subscribe. Learning about Canadian politics right here. CHYSTIA just flew in on her broom. She almost seems like a real person here, not a witch. Almost.
College Hospital. This is really a special personal place for me because I gave birth to my first child at Women's College Hospital. And, you know, like so many women in Toronto, in Ontario, that means whenever I come here, I think of that moment when I became a mother here with the help of all of you. And so I just really want to recognize the role Women's College Hospital plays, all our healthcare workers play. They are at the center of so many of the stories that are the most precious stories.
Hey Jim, like and subscribe. Canadian politics. We're having a great time right here. I know CHYSTIA is bad, Korean is bad. There's so many, like Suds is bad. There's so many like terrible women in this Liberal caucus. But Anon, I think, is maybe the worst one to listen to. Just listen to this.
The Leader of the Opposition is aware, but Canada has the lowest debt to GDP ratio and the lowest deficit in the G7. And what we do on this side of the House is maintain fiscal responsibility while investing in Canadians, especially vulnerable Canadians. Let's look at the Canada Child Benefit. Let's look at $10 a day childcare. Let's look at the Canada Dental Benefit, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we actually have compassion for Canada.
How bad is that, spending like any amount of time with Anita Anand? That's the, oh my God. It's the worst. This lady, is there anybody that you want to see? Because I've got hundreds of these Canadian politics. So if you have somebody that you want to see, I know CHYSTIA is bad, Korean is bad. There's so many, like Suds is bad. There's so many like terrible women in this Liberal caucus. But Anon, I think, is maybe the worst one to listen to. Just listen to this.
The Leader of the Opposition is aware, but Canada has the lowest debt to GDP ratio and the lowest deficit in the G7. And what we do on this side of the House is maintain prudent fiscal responsibility while investing in Canadians, especially vulnerable Canadians. Let's look at the Canada Child Benefit. Let's look at $10 a day childcare. Let's look at the Canada Dental Benefit, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we actually have compassion for Canada.
How bad is that, spending like any amount of time with Anita Anand?
Those were
That's
back-to-back. Sorry,
oh
guys.
my God. It's the worst. This lady says to trust her. It doesn't happen. Like and subscribe. Canadian Politics, right here. It would seem that Andrew Scheer knows who invited the Nazi to the Parliamentary.
Mr. Speaker, it's the government that is politicizing this issue
Calamari,
for
what's up? How are
refusing
you?
to accept their responsibility. There is only one group of individuals who have control over who has access to a foreign
Bags,
head of
what's
state,
up?
a head of state who is fighting for his country's life against an illegal invasion by Russia.
Do you think that that's true? If it is true, it's going to come out.
And the Prime Minister has a duty of care for that entire visit. Now the government House leader is trying to change her tune and say, yes, there was information gathered, list was gathered, but vetting wasn't done. What's the point of gathering a list of invitees if they're not doing any background checks?
You guys want to watch the House leader? I can do that. So what do we think? Did Andrew Scheer know? Is it going to come out? These clowns. Let's find out what Canadians think about microplastics. Are they toxic? Do you think they're toxic?
Yes. Microplastics are bad for us, and they're showing up in our bloodstream, and single-use plastics are bad for the environment. And I believe that there are alternatives that can be used in place of many single-use plastics, such as paper.
Yes. Well, because the breakdown, anything that is going to the landfill, is going to eventually break down and go into the soil and go into the system, just like anything going through a water system. It's all going to end up underground and eventually, absolutely, plastics are toxic. Yeah.
I think it should be a toxin because it pollutes the environment and takes years for it to biodegrade.
Getting rid of microplastics is not going to be that easy. Are they toxic? Canadian issues. Sorry, gang. Hang with me. We're going to go and see if Poilievre is live. Because if Poilievre is live, then we're going to want to check that out. Let's find out. Sorry, again, I'm doing something here while we try to hook this up. Okay, who said that Poilievre was live? Like, because he's not. Well, he's not on CPAC, so... Hey, Harry, what's up? How are you? Okay, back to what we were doing. Canadian Politics, like, subscribe, right here. We try to stay positive about the politics here, but this Jen O'Connell is a real dum-dum. She's like kind of a cross between Baby Spice and Phoebe from Friends.
In this House time and time again, any misconduct in the procurement process is unacceptable. We accept that the president of the CBSA has initiated internal audits and issued some initial reports. Mr. Speaker, she has also referred some of the concerning reports to the RCMP, but members opposite should know it's not politicians who direct the RCMP, it's the RCMP who does this work, and the RCMP will set the mandate for wherever the case may lead, and we will accept that work.
They've got to go. Like and subscribe. We need an election. Trudeau has to go. I don't want to say that JAGMEET has gone rogue, but this is not a very good look for him or the NDP party.
ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਆਓ ਗੱਜ ਕੇ ਫਤਿਹ ਬੁਲਾਓ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. So when we think about 1984, I know all of us have some personal memory. ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਚੌਰਾਸੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਜੇ ਸੋਚੀਏ ਕਿ ਹਰੇਕ ਦਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਰਸਨਲ ਕਹਾਣੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨੇ ਦੇਖ ਪਤਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਤੇ ਯੂਥ ਲਈ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਹੋਇਆ. If we think about it as young people, we know
the live stuff is coming back. Get ready for that. Like and subscribe. We're having fun with Canadian politics right here.
Ehren here, Question Period Canada. Quick question about grocery prices. What are we going to do? I can't afford my bills.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for the question, Mr. Speaker. I'm really surprised in the way of that question, Mr. Speaker.
I think we found it, maybe. So let's see what we can do for flipping into that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Poilievre.
Thank you very much, British Columbia. Who's ready to axe the tax? Who's ready for a home you can afford? Who's ready for safe streets? Who's ready to fire our incompetent Prime Minister? And who's ready to make common sense common again? Wow, it sure isn't common these days, is it? You know, I was driving here, driving earlier today after I landed at the airport, just back from staying with a billionaire friend in Jamaica, and no, I wasn't. I didn't get the invite. It must have been lost in the mail. But so, you know, I noticed that the disorder, the crime, the chaos that's now taken over our streets. And I thought to myself, isn't it funny? Justin Trudeau wants to ban your plastic straw while decriminalizing heroin and crack, right? He wants to ban your hunting rifle while allowing repeat violent offenders to continually terrorize our streets. He, with the help of Jack Layton, not Jack Layton, he's not around. I'm not sure he would be very happy with what his current NDP leader has done. With the help of Jagmeet Singh, who's betrayed British Columbia, Justin Trudeau wants a 61 cent a litre carbon tax that he says will save the world, all while this high carbon, high tax, high flying hypocrite jets around the world at your expense. And what is the result? What is the result of all of this nonsense that we've seen from this Prime Minister, of him attempting to concentrate more and more money and power in the hands of him and his close friends and cronies? The result is that everything costs more, with 2 million people, a record-smashing 2 million people now resorting to food banks just to nourish their bodies. Scurvy and other conditions that were long ago banished from Canada are back because people are not able to feed themselves. The cost of living has risen so much, in fact, the cost of housing has risen so much that one defense lawyer in Vancouver recently tweeted that some of her clients who are in prison have asked if she can find a way to extend their sentence so they don't have to go out and find a place to rent. After 8 years of Justin Trudeau and the NDP coalition, it now costs more for a 2-bedroom townhouse in Kitchener than for a 20-bedroom castle in Scotland. That's a reality. After, what's that? Scott, we've got a great Scot over here. All right, this guy gets an apple. There you go. There you go. Great Scot. Great Scott. How do you like that? How do you like them apples? You know, an apple a day will keep the woke journalists away. I'm sorry I can't throw the apple that far, so I'm not sure you'll be able to catch it. We'll see you in the apple orchard. We'll see him in the apple orchard. That's okay, we're going to cut his taxes too, won't we? But after 8 years of Justin Trudeau and JAGMEET saying life costs more, work doesn't pay, housing costs have doubled, crime, chaos, drugs and disorder are common in our streets. But here's the good news, my friends. Life was not like this before Justin Trudeau, and it won't be like this after he's gone. Our common sense plan is going to give you back control of your life and bring home the Canada that we know and love. We're going to do it with some very obvious steps that the hardworking people of this country have been demanding for a long time, and that Justin Trudeau, the NDP, and the elites have ignored for far too long. To begin with, common sense conservatives will axe the tax to bring home lower prices. So this carbon tax is going to go up to 61 cents a litre, quadrupling its current level if Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh are elected. Yep. And here we are. Jagmeet Singh voting to raise the taxes of hardworking union members here in BC. He promised that he would represent their interests and their values on Parliament Hill, but as soon as he got his seat, he forgot about the people who elected him, and he ran off to serve his boss in Ottawa, Justin Trudeau, with higher taxes on all of you. This is a nonsensical tax, a tax that punishes people for doing what is necessary in a big, cold country. I'll give you an example. In my riding, we have a tomato farm, Suntech Tomatoes. They grow the little miracles of Manotick. And Justin Trudeau is charging his carbon tax on the CO2 that they release into the greenhouse, even though it's absorbed by the plant life. Apparently, Trudeau missed that day in science class. But the end result is that the carbon tax makes that the tomato in Manotick, made by the local farmer, is more expensive than the Mexican tomato, which doesn't pay the Canadian carbon tax. Therefore, we send a price signal for Canadians to buy the more polluting Mexican tomato that had to be transported by truck and train, burning fossil fuels right across North America, rather than buying the more environmentally friendly local tomato here in Canada. So, by getting rid of the tax, by getting rid of the carbon tax, the Liberals are getting desperate today, aren't they? They're very desperate. Justin Trudeau has tried to shut down Canadians, but he won't silence our voices, will he? But not only will we axe the tax, not only will we axe the carbon tax, that's right, not only will it be my first act to axe the tax, your carbon tax is not the only tax that Trudeau is making you pay. There is also the inflation tax. And we also call this Justinflation. Now, what is the inflation tax? The inflation tax is when the government prints money to fund its overspending. More dollars chase fewer goods, which leads to higher prices. It's very simple. If you have an economy with $10 and, say, 10 apples, then it's $1 for each apple. If you double the number of dollars while keeping the same number of apples, all of a sudden it's $2 for each apple. You don't get richer just because the accounting system we call money becomes more plentiful. Money is just the technology by which we transfer value over space and time. You create more money, you're just causing more static in that technology that we call money. And so everything becomes more expensive when you create cash. In Canada today, we have seen a 32% increase in the money supply in just 3 years. 3 years ago, Canada had $1.8 trillion of bills, coins, and bank deposits. That's now up to $2.4 trillion, an increase of $600 billion or 32%, while the real economy has grown by 4%. In other words, the money is growing 8 times faster than the stuff that money buys. Why? Well, that $600 billion works out almost exactly to the deficits that Justin Trudeau has run. So by running the deficits and creating more cash, he bids up all of the costs of the goods we buy and the interest that we pay. But it's not bad news for everybody. The wealthy billionaire class who protect their wealth by massive land holdings, fancy watches, wines, art collections, stocks, commodities, they get richer because the things they own go up in value. Just by sitting on their big, fat assets, they enrich themselves. But the working class people see the purchasing power of their wages and their pensions go down. It is a transfer of wealth from the have-nots to the have-yachts. And the have-yachts were there last week at the World Economic Forum. There they were. Mark Carney, Justin Trudeau's replacement, the incoming Liberal leader, was celebrating all the money that the central banks had printed to create the inflation that has driven 2 million of our fellow citizens to the food bank and meant an entire generation of youth cannot afford homes. Of course, the central banks have done exactly what the Mark Carneys of the world would like. They've inflated his wealth while stealing the bread from the mouth of labor. This is a tax on the working class. It is a tax on the poor. It is an immoral tax. And we will end the inflation tax by ending the money printing that caused it in the first place. We will cap government spending with a dollar-for-dollar law requiring each of my ministers find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending so that we internalize the scarcity inside government that every other creature in the universe must live with. Birds in the trees, fish in the seas, all must maximize use of scarce resources. Every creature faces this challenge except the politician, who can simply push the scarcity onto everyone else with more taxes, more debt, and more money printing. That is the cause of the inflation that we have today. The solution is to internalize the scarcity, force politicians to make the same trade-offs that single moms and small businesses make between one thing or another, or doing both at a lower cost by finding a more intelligent way to do it. These calculations figure into every family financial decision. We need to bring them inside government because we know that if there are no legal limits on the money politicians they spend, they will show no discipline, they will serve themselves, and they will make the people pay for it. We will cap the spending and control the government's deficits. We'll save $35 billion by getting rid of the wasteful infrastructure bank that has not completed a single project. We'll get rid of the $54 million ArriveCan app. We'll get rid of the $54 million ArriveCan app, my friends, that is proven to be nothing more than a waste of money designed to enrich liberal insiders. He might have been the one guy that got rich off the infrastructure bank, eh? He didn't like that one very much. Maybe he was the contractor behind the ArriveCan app, and that's why he's so upset. You know, as a joke, two IT workers actually got a case of beer and a couple of pizzas and redesigned the ArriveCan app from scratch. It took them 1 weekend. It didn't cost $54 million. I was thinking about calling them up and asking if I could get the app, send it to Trudeau. We'll call it the ResignCan app. What do you think? We're going to get rid of the billion-dollar green fund. We've learned now, according to the bureaucrats who were recorded in a secret conversation, that $150 million of the money has already been misappropriated, and it resembles the old Liberal sponsorship scandal. The only thing green about this fund is the green that's going in the pocket of Liberal insiders. We will save $1 billion by getting rid of this wasteful spending as well. We will... Then there's the $21 billion they're spending on outside consultants, an amount that is up 100% in just 8 years. That means that every family in Canada today is spending $1,400 on federal taxes just for consultants. Not for healthcare or military or roads, for consultants. We will cut back on the consultants and we will bring the work inside the bureaucracy. We have more bureaucrats than ever. They should be doing the job and we shouldn't be contracting it out to high-priced consultants. And by the way, oh, we got an apple here. Who's this? Who's this? Who's this?
Yeah, Eddie.
And Andy, do you like apples?
Yeah.
Why? Well, you enjoy that apple. It's very good for you. You're a very smart young girl. Maybe you're a future prime minister too, eh? Yeah, way to go. Wow, beautiful. Hey, that's the future. We won't tell her how much of the national debt she owes, but that's who we're fighting for right there, folks. And we're going to save $1 billion by defunding the CBC. We're going to save the money so that we no longer have central bank money printing. I will be getting that bank back to its core job, which is to protect the purchasing power of your money so that your pension and your paycheck are more powerful. And we will also ensure that there is never in Canada a central bank digital currency. Instead of creating more cash, we're going to create more of what cash buys. We're going to encourage hard work again. We're going to end the NDP Liberal war on work. We punish work in Canada. You know, it's funny, I saw a meme the other day. It was a little boy asking his dad, what is an income tax form? He said, it's the opposite of your report card. The better you do, the more you get punished. Right? It's the fine you pay for the crime of hard work. You go out and earn an extra $1. Not only do you pay income tax and payroll tax, but you get clawed back on your child benefit and other income supports the government provides. This is the penalty that in some cases can rob 80 to 90 cents of the next dollar you earn. People wonder why we have a labor shortage. Well, we're punishing labor with high taxes. A common sense conservative government will cut income taxes so that you bring home more of each dollar you earn, and hard work once again pays off in this country. We're going to have more powerful paychecks by bringing home production of our natural resources in Canada. Justin Trudeau wants to ban your pickup truck and force you to buy an electric vehicle made in China using lithium that's sending our money abroad for cars that jam up when the weather gets too cold. Mind you, you don't know anything about that around here, do you? Maybe a little bit. Yeah, or in Alberta. You see the minus 40 weather they had the other day? Imagine if every single person had been forced, as Trudeau and in the NDP plan, to have a China-made electric car. Meanwhile, we have the sixth biggest supply of lithium on planet Earth right here in Canada. We don't mine a single tablespoon of it for ourselves because we can't get a mine approved. The one operational mine in Canada for lithium, the Liberals authorized its sale to China so that they could take 100% of what comes out of the ground and do all the value-added work there. Meanwhile, we have the third biggest supply of oil on planet Earth, and we're still importing 130 barrels of overseas dictator oil off the east coast of Canada. And finally, we have 1,200 trillion feet of natural gas. We don't export 1 foot of it around the world. We just give it to the Americans and let them make all the profit because we can't get a liquefaction plant approved in this country. Even though Trudeau says there's no business case for natural gas. Well, nobody told the Americans they built 6 plants. Nobody told the Qataris they doubled their production and signed a 3.5 million cubic meter deal with the French to supply Europe and use the proceeds, by the way, to host Hamas in Qatar. Nobody told the Germans they built an import terminal from concept to completion in 194 days. Here in Canada, of the 18 proposed plants, not one of them has been completed because of the radical agenda of Justin Trudeau and the NDP blocks our resource sector and sends our money abroad. Here's my common sense plan. We're going to repeal the anti-energy law C-69. We're going to dig mines again. We will bring in a new law that consults First Nations, protects our environment, but gets decisions made in 18 months rather than 18 years so that we can dig the mines in Canada. We can produce and use our own oil. We can cool that natural gas to a minus 161 degrees, put it on a ship to Asia to break Asian dependence on coal, put it on a ship to Europe to break European dependence on Putin, and turn dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people. Bring it home! Bring it home! Bring it home! Bring it!
All right, guys, we're going to change it up. I found the most recent piece that Poilievre has done on the road, and it's not live, but this happened like an hour ago, so we're crossing over into that. Sorry, guys, I've got a few things. We're going to get there. Promise.
This carbon tax increase on April 1st is revealing. Let me tell you. We have Second Harvest Food Bank just put a report out saying that in 2024, 1 million more Canadians will be accessing a food bank than they did in 2023. 1 million more people. Yeah. Now, you would think that a prime minister like Justin Trudeau, a man who claims to be very compassionate, sensitive, you would think that he would be wanting to provide relief and help for hardworking Canadians during a time like this. And, yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. And then what are we getting instead? We're getting a tax increase that will make your groceries, your gas, and your home heating even more unaffordable than it was last year. It is unbelievable. So, yeah, he doesn't get it. He is out of touch. The Prime Minister is completely out of touch, and April 1st will put that very clear front and center for everyone to see. Yeah. Well, no, let's not go there. So we are here to send Trudeau a message. We are here to rally behind our leader, Pierre Poilievre, the next Prime Minister of Canada. It is my honor to introduce Pierre Poilievre's #1 supporter, a person whose life story many of us in this room can relate to. Her name is Zenaida Poilievre. Yeah. Like many other Canadians, she immigrated to this country, born in Caracas, Venezuela. Yes. Back in 1995, she moved here with her family. They settled in a working-class neighborhood in the East End of Montreal, and they worked very hard, like many of you in this room, for opportunity. And she found her way to the University of Ottawa, where she studied communications, and she became a parliamentary affairs advisor to the Senate of Canada and the House of Commons. There is where she met Pierre Poilievre. They got married in 2017. She's also the founder of a website, a lifestyle website for women called Smart and Pretty Co. And she has become a key part of the conservative movement, in addition to raising their 2 children, by being Pierre Poilievre's #1 supporter. Ladies and gentlemen, Anna Poilievre.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here. It's been a while. As you know, my husband, he has been traveling from coast to coast to coast so that he can step away from the Ottawa bubble and go right there on the ground to hear the stories of Canadians and the challenges that they're facing today. A single mother who's struggling to put food on the table. She has to choose between either putting food on the table or heating her home because of the rising costs caused by inflation and excess tax that we cannot afford. A young electrician who has a family member that's ill and that lives kilometers away from his house, a couple of 100 kilometers away from his house, and he simply cannot visit that family member because he cannot afford a tank of gas. Les Canadiens reconnaissent que mettre de la nourriture sur votre table, conduire vos enfants à l'école, conduire à la maison n'est pas un luxe, mais une nécessité. C'est pourquoi la taxe sur le carbone pénalise ceux qui souffrent le plus. Alors, il faut abolir cette taxe sur le carbone. Canadians recognize that putting food on the table, heating your home, driving your children to school, driving yourself to work, it is not a luxury. It is a necessity. And it is those that are struggling the most, that are being penalized by this tax, the carbon tax. That is why we're here, to axe the carbon tax. I do my best to travel with my husband and to be by his side so I can hear all of these stories as well. But then I have to stay home with our children to make sure that there's a parent home there giving them hope and reminding ourselves why we're doing this. It is not an easy path that we've chosen, but whenever my husband comes home and I see pain through his eyes, it reminds me why we're doing this. But then I see hope in his eyes. Because Canadians are standing tall, strong, raising, and you are the reason why we're doing this. And that is why every single sacrifice as a family, we do it together, and it is so worth it. Together, we're going to continue fighting, axing the tax, and bringing some common sense to this country. a young boy born in Calgary, raised by 2 school teachers, that grew up in a very modest home. He was taught that it did not matter where he come from. It mattered where he was going. That story reminded me of my own story. I was born in Caracas, Venezuela, and my family in 1995 decided to come here to Canada for the hope that we're going to have a better future. My father, who is present here tonight, mi papá, un gran hombre que hizo muchos sacrificios por su familia. A man that sacrificed a lot, who traded his business suits and came here to work really hard so that we can have hope. And it is because of that that I am here today. It is because of that decision and those sacrifices. He came to a country where there used to be hope, where you could work hard and you could get ahead, where it didn't matter where you come from, whether you were born here, but if you came here to work hard, to respect the law, there was hope and you could get ahead. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is hope ahead of us. And that is why it is my pleasure to share with you my husband, our next Prime Minister, Pierre Poilievre.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Axe the tax! 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 Anna, I think they want to axe the tax. Wow. Thank you for that incredible Etobicoke welcome. Who's ready to spike the hike? Who's ready to axe the tax? Who's ready to make common sense common again? Who's ready for affordable homes, affordable food, affordable gas? And who's ready to make all these things in Canada again? In other words, bring it home. 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 Wow. What a crowd. What incredible energy. What an incredible speech by my incredible wife. Isn't she amazing? That's raw talent right there. Nobody writes her speeches. In fact, she just scribbles a few notes on a piece of paper and turns it into a masterpiece every single time. You know, I knew she was smart. when I really realized I was going to be marrying MacGyver is when she repaired our car with her hair elastic when we were on just off the highway back from Montreal to Toronto. This is a woman who can solve any problem. She can get, by the way, any product that can be purchased, she can find the best bargain in the world. She's able to make dollars go further than anyone I've ever seen before. And that might seem like a small thing, just like a domestic skill. It's not a domestic skill. It's a skill that we need to have right back in the heart of the government. Value for money. It's common sense. It's common sense. And by the way, she also is a marketing genius. Look at this incredible merch that she put together.
I don't think, David, like, maybe. I don't know. Like, I'm not the boss, but it's just an opinion.
Yeah, that's all that's coming off. There's nothing else coming off.
With yours,
I'm not Justin Trudeau here.
I do have hope.
In fact, we have more of these shirts. Look at this. It's incredible shirts we have here. You can get them at bringithome.ca. Bringithome.ca. Look at that. There you go. So, on what day will Justin Trudeau raise April 1st, which is what? April Fool's Day. She was the first. That's your prize there. She's getting an Axe the Tax t-shirt, and you know what she's going to do with that? She's going to bring it home. She's going to bring it home. April 1st, April Fool's Day, and with Justin Trudeau and the NDP, the joke is on you. Over there's the countdown. You see it? Time left until Justin Trudeau's April Fool's Day tax increase. 23% hike coming to your gas, your heat, your groceries, everything's set to go up. It is a tax on every single thing you buy. If it goes in a truck, or a train, if it has to be heated in a warehouse or transported, if it has to be transported around the country, axe the tax, 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 axe the tax. Now, we know everything Trudeau has said about the carbon tax has so far been false. Remember when he said it would make you better off? He said there'd be this rinky-dink little check you'd get in the mail that would make it all right. Well, we have here, is Kathy Katula here? Kathy, that's you. Come on over here. Can I say hello to you? Come over here. Kathy, you remember when Justin Trudeau saw you at a town hall meeting and you were telling him how expensive it was to heat your home? And he said his carbon tax was going to make it all better, didn't he?
It was nothing but a photo op.
And he gave you a big hug and he cried, a little tear went down his face, right?
Yeah, he told me to focus on spoiling my grandkids. I haven't been able to visit them in 3 years because his carbon tax cost me over $200 a month. Axe the tax.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Kathy.
You're just a
Axe the tax.
David, and whatever.
Yeah, Trudeau said, don't worry, this carbon tax will make you better off. He gave you a big hug in front of the cameras. It was a big warm hug, but not warm enough to heat the home in the winter in Canada. No, you actually need natural gas to do that in most places, and the tax on that gas is going to be going up by almost a full quarter, 23%, which will mean hundreds of dollars more in costs for families like Kathy. Now remember, he told us that he would give you all the money back and more. That it would be, it was like that uncle who sends you an email from a faraway country claiming that you don't know who he is, but he's going to pass away soon and he wants to bequeath you $1 million. You just need to give him your credit card and password and he'll deposit into your account, right? One of these scams. That's the Trudeau tax scam. So I brought some bills here today to shed light on the Trudeau scam. Because here are the facts about the Trudeau tax. Here are the facts. Axe the tax. Here, let me look at the data for Ontario. Trudeau's plan is to more than quadruple the carbon tax, up to 61 cents a litre, and at a proportional hike on your home heating and on everything shipped to you. According to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, when this tax and the second carbon tax combine to take full effect, as they will over the next 5 years, should God forbid he be re-elected, the total cost to an average family in Ontario will be $4,078 in carbon taxes. Almost 3 times what the rebate is promised to be, and that assumes he keeps his promises about these phony rebates. So we know that everybody is going to be much worse off as a result of the carbon tax. Let's go through the many ways this is the case. First of all, there's the direct cost. For the single mom who's trying to take her kids to sports and to school in the morning, who has to drive herself to work, she has no choice. There isn't an electrified train to take her. She can't ride her bicycle 40 kilometers every single day to get to the restaurant where she serves her customers. She will be paying higher direct costs. But then there are the indirect costs. See, Trudeau said, oh, on the face of it, you're all better off, forgetting that when you attack the cost of energy, everything else goes up with a cascading increase. Let's move on to the cost of food. So I have here, this is actually an Enbridge bill from constituents of mine. They're the Madero's mushroom farmers. They produce most of the mushrooms in Eastern Ontario. Their carbon tax bill for 1 month was $21,620. 1 month. Trudeau intends to quadruple that carbon tax to over $80,000 in 1 month. Then, that's he literally taxes the energy that they pump into their mushroom chambers, and then the drying cost and the heating cost, and then there's the trucking cost in order to take the mushrooms from the farm over to the wholesaler, which has to be heated, where it's taxed again. And then it goes from the wholesaler all the way over to the retailer. And in those big Costco facilities or even the small grocery stores, they have to heat the place. That all becomes more expensive. So by the time you buy your mushroom, it has been taxed by Trudeau and the NDP 5 or 6 times. You can imagine why this cascading effect drives up the cost of food. And then there's beef. Well, they want to ban you from eating beef, of course. Think about that. They want a carbon tax. They carbon tax the farmer who makes the grains. Those grains then have to be dried, so they tax the dry heating from natural gas that's used to turn that grain dry. That grain is then turned into feed, and then it has to be transported over to the farms where there are feedlots. And then the buying farmer who buys that grain for feed, he has to pay the carbon tax. And then when he takes his cattle to the slaughterhouse, that transportation is carbon taxed again. And then the slaughterhouse has to pay the tax. And then the final cut meat has to be transported when it is carbon taxed again. And so there is a cascading tax again and again. And by the time, God forbid, that you might have a steak on your plate, just once a year, which is all many people can afford, you have 8 or 9 separate carbon taxes baked into or grilled in to that same piece of meat. This is a tax. And so what is he? Let me tell you how insane this is. I have a little farm in my riding called SunTech Tomatoes. They produce the little miracles of Manotick. Trudeau's carbon tax applies on the CO2 they release into the greenhouse, even though that CO2 doesn't go into the atmosphere. It's absorbed by the plant life. That's the point. Apparently, Trudeau missed that day in science class. So the end result is that it's more expensive to buy a Manotick tomato in Manotick than a Mexican tomato in Manotick. So we send a price signal to our customers to buy the foreign and more polluting tomato that had to be transported burning fossil fuels by truck and train all across North America instead of buying the more environmentally responsible tomato from the local producer in your neighborhood. Common sense Conservatives will not just axe the tax, we will repatriate farm production to our country so that we can feed our people and stand on our feet. Bring it home! Bring it home! Yeah. Bring it home. Wow. Sorry. That is very rude. I'm sorry. These are very delicious. You know what? You know what they say. An apple a day keeps the liberal journalists away. Some of them are here. They're welcome. They're welcome. They're paying the carbon tax too, eh? I think some of them are changing. A lot of liberals are changing. We have a great common sense liberal who did the right thing for his constituents. We have John Nunziata. Give John a round of applause. The great John Nunziata. He was a liberal member of Parliament. Get this. This is a fantastic man. He ran on a platform to get rid of the GST. And then when the Liberals, who promised the same thing as part of the same party, broke the promise, he said, I'm keeping my integrity. He left the Liberal Party, ran as an independent, and was endorsed by his constituents. There's a low-tax, common-sense man who stands for his principles. Thank you, John. Thank you. You can say that. John, what did you say there?
They're all going to vote for you now, including my son, who's a politician. He's a TDSV trustee. We're promoting you every day.
Thank you very much, John. Well, you see, the thing is, John hasn't changed. He has the same common sense values from the start. He was fighting high taxes then. He's fighting high taxes now. There are many common sense liberals who, when the party believed in balancing budgets and low taxes and free enterprise and keeping criminals locked up and developing our resources, they believed in that too. Those common sense liberals have been abandoned by the radical agenda of Justin Trudeau that taxes your money, that punishes your work, that doubles your housing costs and unleashes crime and chaos in your community. We're welcoming all those common sense liberals into our party. We want them. Thank you, John. In fact, that's why I'm making an announcement today. It is now 21 days, 9 hours, 28 minutes, and 53 seconds until Trudeau's April Fool's Day tax hike kicks in on you. So here's my announcement. Common sense Conservatives are unleashing a massive pressure campaign on NDP and Liberal MPs to vote against Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh and in favor of spiking the hike and axing the tax. Axe the tax. Axe the tax. But it involves all of you. I can't do it myself. Politics is not a spectator sport. It is a participation sport. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So you need to be at the table. So I'm going to be asking some things from all of you. I'm going to be asking, we are going to start a massive pressure campaign in Parliament, but you need to back me up on the ground. How many of you are going to write your Liberal NDP members and demand they vote with common sense Conservatives to axe the tax? How many will organize protests out of Liberal constituency offices to pressure them to do the right thing? How many of you are going to send emails to all of your networks and post on all of your social media so that every one of your neighbors know about the upcoming April Fool's Day tax hike. How many of you will bombard Liberal NDP offices with phone calls to make sure that they understand their constituents cannot afford to pay anymore? We are going to heighten the power and the pressure on the Liberal MPs. Now, many of you will say, oh, that'll never make a difference. Well, if you think that you're too small to be effective, you've never been in a tent with a mosquito. The reality is, we have forced these guys to back down before. Remember, Justin Trudeau wanted to apply his massive tax increase on home heating oil right across the country. So we launched a campaign just like this in Atlantic Canada to keep the heat on and take the tax off. Atlantic Canadians rose up, they made noise, and their MPs heard the message loud and clear that they were not prepared to pay the bills. So these MPs started calling Justin Trudeau, begging him to cancel his plans to apply the tax on home heating bills. And on one Friday, when Justin Trudeau was relaxing in his office, all of a sudden his secretary said, Mr. Prime Minister, there's a whole gang of Atlantic Canadian Liberal MPs banging on your door. They're demanding that you announce here and now that you're going to give their constituents a break on the carbon tax. He said, close the door, don't let them in, for God's sakes. So they tried that, but they kept pounding away, and Justin started to get nervous. He was rolled up in a little ball in the fetal position on the ground, sucking on his thumb. And finally, they kicked down the door, they grabbed him, they dragged him out to a press conference where an unannounced, unscheduled press conference, where he said that he would pause the tax for some people in some regions where his caucus was revolting and his poll numbers were plummeting. Well, we want to see his caucus revolting everywhere and his poll numbers plummeting everywhere so that he will spike the hike until we can axe the tax. It's not just about the cost to consumers. It's about the independence and self-reliance of the Canadian economy. This tax applies on our businesses, but not on the businesses that dump their product, foreign corporations that dump their products into our country and make us more dependent on the rest of the world. I was at Canada's oldest steel plant, Stelco, over 100 years. Any steel workers here? We got a steel worker there. God bless the steel workers, amazing steel workers in our country. God love them. And their chief operating officer told me that when the carbon tax is fully implemented, it will cost $500 million for their one plant. That's thousands of jobs, my friends. That's wages that will be robbed from unionized, hardworking Canadian workers. Money that will be taken from their kitchen tables that would have been used to feed their kids. And what will it mean for the world and for the environment? It'll mean we will import more steel products from the most dirty, polluting foreign dictatorships where they don't have any carbon tax at all. They are pushing production out of Canada. Pushing production out of Canada. They're doing the same thing with the electric car mandate, right? They're forcing you to drive a vehicle that was used with materials refined burning coal in China. They want our money to go to a foreign dictatorship. We know Justin Trudeau has said he's always admired the basic Chinese communist dictatorship in China. We just didn't realize that he meant he was going to send our jobs and our money over to that foreign dictatorship. So my common sense plan, my friends, is to axe the tax on Canadian businesses so that they can bring home the production to this country. We can make our own steel, manufacture our own goods, produce our own food. Bring it home to our people. Bring it home. Et que fait le Bloc? Que fait le Bloc? Le Bloc travaille avec Justin Trudeau pour radicalement augmenter les taxes sur le dos des Québécois. Le Bloc a littéralement dit c'est pas juste qu'ils supportent la taxe carbone, mais ils veulent le radicalement augmenter. Le bloc, et Justin Trudeau n'en vaut pas le coup, ça coûte cher voter bloc. Nous, les conservateurs, allons couper taxes et impôts, bâtir des logements, réparer le budget et stopper les crimes. My friends, I say the same thing in both French and English. Our common sense plan is to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. And speaking of building homes, the carbon tax will make home building even more expensive as all the raw materials that go into homes have to be shipped to the construction site. And many of the materials that you take for granted in your home are made using petroleum products. So the drywall that you see as you walk into your house, many of the plastic materials that you take for granted, they all become more expensive as the carbon tax goes up. And that further drives the housing crisis we have before us today. Common sense conservatives believe that Canadians can no longer afford to pay. After 8 years of Trudeau, housing costs have doubled to the point where in Toronto, it now takes 25 years for a family to save up for a down payment on a home. Used to pay off an entire home in that time period. I was recently in Oshawa, where 16 seniors have been forced out of their homes by rent hikes and are crammed into one house where they've been provided by the local food bank. That food bank tells me they're literally running out of food. 2 million people line up at food banks every single month. 36% of Canadian charities are now turning people away because they have nothing left. And there is a Facebook network called the Dumpster Diving Community, where 8,000 people share tips with each other on how they can better eat out of a garbage can. We never thought this would happen in our country, but that is what happens with 8 years of radical NDP Justin Trudeau policies. But the good news is, life was not like this before Justin Trudeau, and it won't be like this after he's gone. We're going to turn the hurt that he has caused into the hope that Canadians need. And I've been saying a few of these. I've been talking a bit too much here. I want to do a quiz here. All right. How much is the carbon tax scheduled to go up? 23%. She got it first. There you go. There you go, sweetheart. Smart young lady. What will happen to the tax when I become Prime Minister? Axe the tax. There we go. Axe the tax. So in addition to axing the tax, we're going to build the homes. Right now, we have the second slowest building permits of any country in the OECD, even though we have the most land to build on. We spend a larger share of our economy on home building than any other country in the OECD. In fact, twice as much as they do in the United States to build the smallest number of homes. Why? Because of the bureaucracy that you have to fight your way through in order to get a building permit. The biggest single cost added to building a home in Canada is not land, labor, or lumber. It is bureaucracy. 60% of a new home cost in Vancouver is permits, consultants, development charges, taxes, lawyers, all the people who do nothing productive to actually build the home. And yet they take up the lion's share of the cost of the new home. So common sense conservatives are going to require
hey everybody, I just want to say, we've got a person that's in the room right now that we can choose to ignore. That's one way of dealing with that. Or just let him fire off, try to rev everybody up, whatever. I think our community is stronger than that. So kind of take a flying leap there, guy. But also, if you just want to try to antagonize this group, go right ahead. I believe the group is strong enough to handle it, but I don't understand what your point is. I believe that you're a voice that has nothing to say or contribute to our group besides antagonize people. And that's fine. I'm not going to kick you out because I believe, again, in my community, but screw off. There's just no need. Like, anyways, we're back into the show. So,
Higher municipalities speed up, lower the cost of building permits, and free up land to build as a condition of getting federal money. I will require cities permit 15% more housing completions. If they hit that target, they'll keep their money. They beat the target, they'll get a bonus. They miss the target, they'll pay a fine. Realtors are paid for the number of houses they sell. Builders for the number they build. Let's pay our municipalities their federal infrastructure money for the number of homes they permit. Pay for results to build the homes. We're going to sell off 6,000 federal buildings and thousands of acres of federal land to build, build, build. And you know something? It warms my heart to think of a beautiful family pulling up in their U-Haul to move into their wonderful new home in the former headquarters of the CBC. How do you like them apples? And we want those homes to be in safe neighborhoods. That's why we're going to stop the crime. We have some wonderful police officers here today. Let's give a big round of applause to our police. God bless our police. We love them. I told some of them as I was coming in, though, I want to reduce their business. I want them to have less return customers. We want more police, but less return customers. We just came back from Penticton. They have one criminal there who does so much crime that you can tell whether he's been in jail on a given day based on the crime rate for the whole city. No, I'm serious. It's not a joke. This guy does so much crime that when he's free, you can actually see spikes in Penticton's crime rate. It's incredible. And every time I go back to Penticton, I relay this story, and people in the crowd, they all shout out his name. They all literally shout out the guy's name, because everybody knows who he is. But he never actually stays in prison because of Justin Trudeau's catch and release policies. Catch and release allows him and other violent offenders to get out of jail within hours of being rearrested. Now, in Vancouver, they had to arrest the same 40 offenders 6,000 times in 1 year. 6,000 times is 150 times per offender per year. And then there's the career car thieves. The car thieves who can serve their sentences in their living rooms, watching Netflix or playing Grand Theft Auto. Common sense conservatives will make repeat violent offenders and career car thieves ineligible for bail. It will be jail, not bail. Jail, not bail. Jail, not bail for repeat violent offenders. Then we're going to tackle the drugs. Trudeau has decriminalized and tax-subsidized narcotics, claiming that this is the best way to keep people safe. He calls it a safe supply. A safe supply of what? Heroin? We're talking about hydromorphone. It is a heroin-grade drug, and yet they're literally giving it out in our streets. Now, we said that these drugs are being diverted, and they're ending up in the hands of children. And they said, oh, that's disinformation. They claimed it was a conspiracy theory. Well, that conspiracy theory was proven to be the truth when just 3 days ago, the RCMP tweeted out that they had acquired tens of thousands of doses of taxpayer-funded opioids that had been diverted into the hands of organized criminals. Criminals who then sell it to kids and get people hooked on drugs. Our common sense plan is to recriminalize the hard drugs, stop giving out taxpayer-funded opioids, and put the money into treatment and recovery to bring our loved ones home drug-free. And not only that, we're going to stand up for our law-abiding sport shooters and hunters. Support the hunters. Yes. Justin Trudeau thinks that stopping crime means we have to take away Grandpa Joe's hunting rifle. We've got news. Justin Trudeau's made it clear. If he's re-elected, he will ban every single civilian firearm. Not one single hunter will be left able to harvest the wilderness for sustenance or recreation. He published 300 pages of hunting rifles that he wanted to ban. He's made it clear that that is his agenda. This is going to come at the cost of billions of dollars to send our police out harassing licensed, law-abiding, trained and tested firearms owners who have already been vetted by the RCMP. That is wasted money, my friends. Instead, we will take that money and we will put it into reinforcing our borders and our ports to keep the illegal drugs out. Speaking of our ports, you know, anybody had any cars stolen around here lately? Yeah, there we go. Everybody's hand goes up. You know, how many cars stolen every day in 25 in Brampton every day. 25 cars stolen in Brampton a day. And they get on a train and they go all the way to Montreal, where they get on a boat and they're shifted off to the Middle East, to Africa, to Europe, and sold to organized crime and terrorists. This is insane. Do you know they only have 5 inspectors at the Port of Montreal? They inspect 1% of the containers that go out and come in. There was one businessman I met with. He said, look, I live in Brampton, therefore I knew my car was going to be stolen one day, so I put an air tag in the trunk. Put an air tag in the trunk. He wakes up in the morning, looks out the window. Sure enough, there's no car in the driveway. So he pulls out his phone, he looks at the app, and he says, oh, I know where the car is. It's on the train route off to the port. So he calls the port. The port says, sorry, we don't have the resources to help you out with this problem. He calls the police in Montreal. They say, oh, we don't have any jurisdiction. We can't really inspect things at the port. So he gets in the car and drives there himself. He's following the progress of his car. He gets there, he jumps over the fence, runs right up to the train. He says, there it is, that's my car right inside that shipping container. And all of a sudden, some CBSA guys come running up. He says, oh, thank God you're here. My stolen car is in that container. Can you help me out? They said, no, we're giving you a fine. He says, well, at least can you take this container down? Can you take this container down and let me have my car back? Say, no, we don't have the resources. The container went up to the ship. It was lifted on board, and off it went overseas. So he paid a fine and lost his car. Isn't that a symbol of everything that's going on? The good guys are always the ones paying the price in Justin Trudeau's Canada. My common sense plan will use money that we save from canceling the gun buyback and from firing useless consultants. We're going to put that money into scanning every shipping container and stopping our cars from being sent abroad. Stop the crime. Stop the crime. We're going to stop the crime. We're going to reinstate common sense to our finances with a dollar-for-dollar law requiring politicians find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending. We'll cut the waste. The $21 billion for consultants will be cut. The $35 billion infrastructure bank that hasn't completed a single infrastructure project will be cut. We will cut the $1 billion green fund. We will cut back on wasteful aid that goes to dictators, terrorists, and multinational bureaucracies and bring that money home. We're going to put that money back in our military to support our troops. Support the troops. They're the guarantors of our freedom. Our freedom. Bring it home. 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 Bring it. Yay! Great catch. Wow, there she goes. Excellent. We're going to bring it home. We're going to bring home our freedom again. We will repeal liberal censorship law C-11. We will ban all of our ministers and members of Parliament from any involvement in the World Economic Forum. There will be no mandatory digital ID, no central bank digital currency. We'll
Hey,
ban
Steve,
the
what's up? How are
IRGC
you?
terrorists to protect our people. We're going to give people back control of their lives here in this country. And we do say bring it home a lot, don't we? And some people wonder what it means. Well, it means what it says. In addition to the common sense, axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, stop the crime, in addition to bringing home more of your paycheck and bringing home more of our industries to this country, it means bringing home the country that we always knew and still love. That's what it means. It means bringing home the common sense consensus that made that possible. And a country that someone once said makes no sense in theory, but always made sense in practice. A common sense that made us all feel at home. But right now, it feels like we're a long way from home, doesn't it? With everything, for all the misery we are suffering and all the hopelessness and division our Prime Minister has caused, it feels like we're a long way from home. So it's kind of hard to remember what home looked like, how beautiful it was, and how much more beautiful it can be. So let me paint a picture of home and hope. It is a picture of children skipping safely off to school, their parents no longer worried about their safety. In the background, the cracking sound of hammers pounding Canadian lumber into yet another new, affordable home. Of seniors driving past and waving at a shopkeeper who sweeps clean his shop storefront as those seniors drive home with affordable groceries in the car and change in their pocket. On their way, they see a group of Legionnaires who are planting beautiful flowers in honor of the fallen heroes of their wonderful community. And when they get home, they hear the familiar sound of parents yelling, bedtime, to children playing street hockey who yell back, 10 more minutes! And then, all of a sudden,
I remember
silence.
that. I do remember.
As a young couple sits
ready,
quietly
like,
on their
supper's
porch,
ready.
soaking in the warm evening air, with a Canadian
That's
flag
true. There was a time
gently
like that.
hanging from the front of their brand new home.
There was.
As they admire the paycheck in one hand and enjoy the cold drink in the other, their eyes meet in a way that can only mean it was worth it. Canada kept the deal. All the hard work paid off because finally we're home. My friends, these are our people. That is our country. This is our home. Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home.
And one thing that has never been done in Canadian history, we call the 5 seals of the groceries in Ottawa, Mr. Speaker. And we express the frustration of 40 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker, about the price of grocery. I would enjoy all members of this House to give the same message that I give. Make sure you help Canadians and help us to stabilize price in Canada. That's what Canadian expects.
We needed a courtesy flush with that one. Like and subscribe. We've got lots of videos.
Some scandals won't go away. This is one of those.
Alan Ray has dropped a bomb on Parliament today. The orphan MP. Governor General scandal coming. Let's check it out.
In the summer of 2020. Mr. Speaker, after the Governor General's lavish spending on international travel, we've learned her office spent over $117,000 on dry cleaning since 2018, an average of $1,800 per month. For fun, I did some calculations based on the going rate for these services. At the rates she's been spending, that's an average of 3 outfits a day, 365 days a year. Why doesn't the government cut her $33 million budget? What are they waiting for? Because she's clearly incapable of managing taxpayers' money seriously and responsibly.
Like and subscribe. We're investigating.
Ehren, question period Canada. Question for you, Pierre. What do you think about this new House Speaker? His set of rules, the way he plays.
Now I see, no, if I'm Mr. Speaker, if I may, this is the first time in all of my years here that I have seen a speaker interrupt question period to make a speech. I've never seen it. I've never seen it. And I furthermore, the fact that you've risen to your feet in order to impose apparently a series of guidelines that are not approved by the Board of the Internal Economy or voted on by the House of Commons, and that you're doing it in violation of one of the existing rules that is already in place, suggests a very serious and unusual departure from the normal way in which Parliament exists.
So what did you think? Like and subscribe. We've got lots of videos coming. So Pierre, what do you think about this new House Speaker? His set of rules, the way he plays.
The fact that you've risen to your feet in order to impose apparently a series of guidelines that are not approved.
All right, gang. So what do we want to do? Like, because we can watch another live video. If someone wants to text me a video that they think is super interesting, I had a tough time finding that Poilievre video from early. Thank goodness we found it. But if anybody has something really interesting to watch, like the community to see, send it to me. We'll see if we can pull it up. Like, we're kind of deep in now, like we're an hour and a half in to this, and kind of looking for material. Like, it's Sunday in the middle of a 2-week off period, so like hot politics is kind of hard to find. That Trump speech, does anybody have a quick link to that? Like, I wouldn't mind taking a peek at that, because that's, no matter what you say, that election is going to have a major influence on our country. Hey, Maximus, what's up? So maybe you can't send links in here that way. I don't know. But if somebody does have a link to watch that Trump video, like, I'm going to put on a quick one and during that time try to find the video and see if that'll work out. Let's try that. Let's see what we can find. Hello everyone, what's up? I'm Ehren, this is Question Period Canada. How are you today? Great episode coming up. It's the first in a series we'll be doing because the coalition governments, there's so many coalitions, they're breaking down though, and it feels like an election is looming. What's up? Time's up. Feels like time's up for the Liberals at least. The polls say if there was an election tomorrow that we'd elect a Conservative majority government. That would be interesting, right? In case you don't believe the polls, you'll agree with this. We're not going to elect the Bloc Québécois to run the country. NDP doesn't stand a chance. So it's the Liberals or the Conservatives. And the polls say now it's the Conservatives. So if the polls are predicting a Conservative majority government, I thought it would be fun to meet some of the star MPs of the Conservative Caucus. So let's start from the top. Pierre Poilievre is the leader of the Conservative Party, the official opposition. He's been in Parliament since 2004 and the leader of the official opposition since 2022. He's got a very sharp tongue, he's funny sometimes, and he does not let the other politicians off the hook. Let's take a quick look at Pierre Poilievre. We're going to show 2 clips here of Pierre, one from 2019, and he's absolutely savage in that one, and then one from much more recently, actually today. And you can see that he's changed a little bit, but he's still funny and he's still got that sharp tongue.
It's funny to listen to a trust fund baby lecturing Canadians about being too rich.
That's right.
He says that people who take the bus are too rich and therefore should lose their transit tax credit. Soccer moms and hockey dads, Prime Minister says they're too rich, so he takes away their children's fitness tax credit. At the same time, he forces these same working class families to pay for his taxpayer-funded nannies. Will he put aside the hypocritical class warfare and tell us the true cost of his tax increases that he would bring in if he got reelected?
We said he had a sharp tongue, right? Calls Trudeau a trust fund baby. Hysterical. Now let's take a peek at something much more recent.
What's up? Rent's up. Rates are up. Taxes up. Debt up. Time's up for this government, Mr. Speaker. After 8 years, they're not worth the cost. And now this Prime Minister cakes on another $20 billion of inflationary spending and will bring up the interest payments on our debt to a record-smashing $51 billion a year. With 2 million Canadians eating at a food bank every month and many facing the loss of their home, why won't they cancel this inflationary scam and replace it with a plan to balance the budget and bring down interest rates and inflation?
So there's a couple of quick looks at Pierre Poilievre. He is definitely a sharp-tongued person. He's a funny politician, and he looks like he's going to be the next Prime Minister. That's what the polls say. Up next, Larry Brock. He's an MP from Ontario. This is a serious guy. He looks just like the Kingpin from Spider-Man, and he means business. He's always looking into the Liberal scams and scandals.
Canadians want these questions asked of this ethically and morally challenged government. Public officials were caught lying. Insiders who became millionaires through the Arrive scam were caught lying. It's time for honesty and clarity in this House. For weeks before the same talking points from this minister, no action. No one's been charged. No one's been fired. So once again, will the minister responsible for this fiasco that the RCMP is investigating please stand up?
Remind me never to mess with that guy. I never want to be on the wrong side of the Kingpin. We're going to take a look next at Jajraj Singh Halan. He's an MP from Alberta, and he also has a great way of delivering his questions. He doesn't let the Liberals or the NDP, any coalition governments, off the hook. Let's take a quick look at Jajraj.
Member from Calgary Forest Lawn.
Last year, the finance minister promised to balance the budget in her false hopes update, then did a massive flip-flop and promised to balance the budget in the year never. The Prime Minister did a massive flip-flop recently too, on his carbon tax scam where he gave a temporary carve-out for Canadians in Atlantic Canada. That's 3% of Canadians, whereas poll numbers were tanking. After 8 years, this Liberal NDP government are not worth the cost, and they still plan on quadrupling it. Why don't they pause quadrupling the carbon tax in today's failing economic update and call a carbon tax election so Canadians can decide?
You can put Jajraj on a list with Brock. Two guys I do not want to be on the wrong side of. We're going to take a peek next at Garnet Genius. He's an MP from Alberta. He's just a young fella practically growing up in Parliament. He's been there since 2015. Well-spoken, knows what he's doing. Let's take a look.
The honourable member from Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
This NDP Liberal government spent $54 million on the Arrive scam app, and now RCMP are investigating contractors. More evidence that after 8 years, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Now, two senior public servants have accused each other of lying about who made the decision to hire GC Strategies. GC Strategies is a two-man company that does nothing and that subcontracts.
So we're going to drop over to a Trump speech that he gave. It was a big one this morning. I think it was this morning. And let's take a peek at that. Again, it'll just take us a second to get this queued up. Okay, one sec. We're right there. We're right there.
to his hand, and it's not a real cough. It's a nervous habit. It's got to stop. Because there was no real cough. He just goes, and then you turn to fake news CNN. Oh, their light just went off. Their light just went off.
Trump gets people riled up. I don't know why. Who cares about this guy? It doesn't really matter who the president is.
The red light just went off. What do you think of that, Jim?
Didn't get better under
Damn it.
Biden, did it?
That's my fault. I waited too long. You have to hit them fast before they can turn it off. No, it just went off.
I'm Carly Barnett here at the Atlanta News First Alert Desk. President Joe Biden has just wrapped up his speech in Atlanta. Former President Donald Trump has taken to the podium at a campaign event in Rome. Let's listen in.
To put it mildly, very rich, very patrician, beautiful accent, beautiful words. He was a great speaker. And they said, not since FDR has a speech been so beautifully delivered. Do you believe this? No, do you believe this? I think Marjorie believes it because she was there. She saw it. It's incredible. That DNC, I'll tell you what. You take a look at MSDNC, how evil they are. They're evil. They're sick. They shouldn't even be allowed to do what they do because it's so corrupt. They shouldn't be allowed to do it. They are fighting me. And to think that I had The Apprentice on NBC and I did so great for them. I said before the election, long before I started even, I said, well, one thing for sure, I did so much. I made so much money for NBC. They hadn't had a #1 show in years. They were dying. And that idiot Jeff Zucker was running it poorly. He was running it to the ground. And I came on and I gave them ratings like they haven't had in years. And when I said, I'm going to leave the show now, they wanted me to extend. Instead, they got Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Trump's
what
an
happened
asshole,
is,
but
I said, no, I'm going to leave because, boy, are you quiet when you hear this
right?
one. Because you haven't heard this before. This isn't part of the repertoire. Right? Right, Bert? You haven't heard this one, but you hear how quiet? It's almost like when I do The Snake. It's very quiet. It's so quiet. You can hear a pin drop, but it's true. I said, one thing that's going to happen, if I decide to leave the show, and they wanted me to extend, they were offering me 3 years, 5, anything I wanted. I said, no, I'm going to run for president. Don't forget, we did it for 14 seasons. That's enough, right? But I said, we're going to run. It's hard to give up prime time and a lot of money, no matter how rich. It's a lot of money you make. But you give up primetime television, Thursday nights. It was a hard thing to do. But I said, no, I'm going to run for president. And they were so upset. And they said, no, no, no. And I decided to do it. And they said, who do you think we should use? I said, I have no idea. That's your business, not mine. And they said, what do you think of Arnold Schwarzenegger? I said, hey, he's a movie star. Maybe he'll do well. The guy got killed. He couldn't get anything. You know, Flies watched. Flies. And the show was canceled. Remember, they tried Martha Stewart, too. How did that work out? She blamed me. She said, it's your fault that she failed doing the... I said, why? She couldn't tell us why. I don't know. She never figured that one out. But they used her. But they used Arnold Schwarzenegger, big movie star. And he failed so badly. Actually, they asked me, because I own it with Mark Burnett, right? Mark Burnett's great. And I own it. And they said, well, you own it, so you would like to have it do well. I said, I would. They said, would you rather have it do unbelievably with our big movie star comes in, Arnold Schwarzenegger, or would you rather have it fail? I thought about it for a little while, and I said, honestly, I'd much rather have it fail because it makes me look better, right? Right? I'm not looking for him to come in and top Trump. No, it worked out just fine. He failed. It was like a total disaster. But I did it for 14 seasons, and I said to NBC, you know, I respect you guys. I liked them. I mean, I liked them. But the bosses came up. They tried to talk to me. 5 guys came up, and they wanted to talk to me. They call them suits, but the top suits, the top. And I just said, no, I've decided I'm going to run for president. But, you know, you won't win. It's impossible to win. Nobody's ever done that before. There's never been a person that ran for president that wasn't either a politician or a general. I think it's 92% are politicians and 8% were generals. Did anybody know these little facts of wisdom? So you had to be a general, I guess an admiral and all, but there were no admirals. 8% generals and 92, think of that, 92% politicians. I said, I don't care. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I'm going to give it a shot. And I announced and immediately went to number one and stayed there for a long time. Remember, I had center of stage. And then I got angry because I said, no, I want to be in the center. I don't want to be tied for the center. Those guys don't come close. So we had to have a different number. So it didn't have to be 10. It had to be 9, or it had to be 11. It had to be something. But it couldn't be an even number. And they got angry at me. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. So then they ended up doing what I said. But right from the beginning, it worked. And then I got on television, and they asked me that horrible, horrible question, remember? And I said, oh, am I dead? That's the first question I ever got. Megyn Kelly, may she rest in peace. She's sort of making a career by pretending she likes me. And then, so what happened is she asked me that horrible question about women. Women love me. You know, I protect women. I protect. They talk about suburban housewives. And look at that. These are suburban housewives from North Carolina. They followed me. This is their 117th rally. You believe that? 117. I don't know what the hell their husbands are doing. They're home alone saying, is my wife okay? No, I mean, we're not so far, but you know, when they go out to Texas and California, there's like 40 of them, and they look great, but I don't think the husbands can be too happy. Are your husbands happy about this? Are they okay with? Yes. Well, you have very nice husbands, I'll tell you. But it was an amazing phenomenon, and I do protect women. Look, they talk about suburban housewives. I believe I'm doing well. You know, the polls are all rigged. Of course, lately they haven't been rigged because I'm winning by so much, I don't want to say it. Disregard that statement. I love the polls very much. We're beating him by so much, but with the suburban, they always say suburban housewives, they want something that's very important, security. They don't want illegal immigrants coming into our country. They don't want illegal immigrants knocking on their front door and saying, I'm going to use your kitchen and I'm going to use your bedroom, and there's not a damn thing. And that's the nice ones, okay? That's the nice ones. They want safety. They want security. And that's what I provide. I had the safest border in the history of our country. Now we have the worst border in the history of our world. So we went out and we did it, and we went to number one almost immediately, right? I think immediately. I think the first week or something was, you know, I wasn't given credit because it was only one day of the week. So I said, I didn't start off too well. They said, well, you were only given credit for like a half a day. I said, that's okay. So let's see how I do. We went to number one immediately. From the day we came down that beautiful escalator in Trump Tower with our First Lady, who people love our First Lady, I want to tell you. She says hello. We went to number one, and we never left. And then we had a beat. I don't call her crooked anymore. I use that term for Joe. Joe's crooked. And I don't call Hillary anything. I don't even think about her anymore, to be honest with you. But we went to number one, and then we weren't supposed to win the election, and that's what they hate me for, because I won an election that the Republicans were not supposed to win. They weren't. We weren't supposed to win it. Right, Jim? But we won it, Jim. Jim Jordan knew. Do we love Jim Jordan, by the way? Every day, Joe Biden is deliberately releasing gang members and military-aged men into our communities by the tens of thousands, knowing full well that his policies will cost countless innocent lives. I'm not sure he does know, if you want to know the truth, because I really don't. I don't think he's a good person. I don't think he's a nice guy. I think he's a corrupt individual, but I don't think, and it has nothing to do with age. I know people from 80 to 90. I know one man from 80, he was a loser all his life. It's true. When he turned 80, he made $1 billion doing something from 80 to 90. Amazing. And I know other people over 90. It's not an age thing. It's a competence thing. It's a competence thing. They got to stop. They do the age thing. And they always have me as his age. I'm 4 years younger. So 4 years is a lot, but it doesn't matter. They do the age thing to try and get Trump. Let's get Trump. They never talk about his competence. He's grossly incompetent. Don't you understand that? The question is, whether or not he's going to get to the starting gate, I can only hope. You know, I challenged him to a debate, and he said his person, who's really a wonderful spokesperson, his press secretary, how good is she? She actually didn't know what to say, but I do, and I challenge him right now. You know, he's at another part of your state where he's really said some bad things today, and we'll get into that. He said some really bad things. But one of the lives that was taken from us was an incredible 22-year-old nursing student right here in Georgia, Laken Riley. Right? Look at the signs. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. From the time she was in the first grade, Laken's dream was to spend her life caring for others. And I met her beautiful mother and family backstage, sister, friends, some of her friends, a roommate. They said she was like the best. She was always the best. They admit that she was the best. And she was the first in her class. She was going to be the best nurse. She was the best nursing student. She was always the best. She was the brightest light in every room, they told me, and she was the whole world to her parents and to her sister, just to the whole family. Incredible. Then the unthinkable happened. 16 days ago, Laken went out for a morning jog. She was in great shape. She wanted to keep herself that way. And she never came back, never came back. They knew something was wrong. An illegal alien criminal who Joe Biden intentionally released into our country has been, and because he's released tens of thousands of people like this, tens of thousands, because you know they come from jails and they come from mental institutions. He released them into our country. Biden has implemented a formal policy that illegal aliens who intrude into the United States are granted immunity from deportation. Thus, when this monster showed up at our border, he was set free immediately under the program that Crooked Joe created. I call it free to kill. It's free to kill. On Thursday night, Joe Biden was confronted over this cruel policy. And what did Crooked
Trump
Joe
is kind of
reply? And
like,
Marjorie,
somehow,
I have to say, you were very brave in trying to bring up a point.
There's a very good chance he's going to be the next president of the United States.
Very brave. That takes courage. It's not easy to do. Stand up and do that.
Harris?
That's not easy to do,
Christopher
Marjorie.
Freeland?
We understand that.
What kind of witch are they?
He got
gonna
Laken's
fly?
name wrong, calling her Lincoln.
He's not as evil as they think. He's
mixing
just
her up with the football coach, right?
Flippant.
He got the name wrong, Lincoln. And when he asked, what about all the legal citizens who kill people? That's what he said. What about all the legal citizens? When he was asked, what about all the legal? In other words, making excuses. Then just moments ago, I don't know if you heard because you've all been waiting online for 2 days, but just moments ago, this was just before coming up, they just told me prior to what I'm doing right now, that Joe Biden went on television and apologized for calling Laken's murderer an illegal. He didn't want to call him illegal. He apologized. He said he should have called him an undocumented, not an illegal, and he wanted to apologize. He wanted to apologize, and well, they have a new name, too. They have a new name that's even worse. They have a new name. You know what the new name is? Neighbor. They want to call him Neighbor. They want to call him another name. Did you ever hear the other one? Newcomer. A newcomer to our country. Are we going crazy or what? Is this country going crazy? How about that one? Newcomer. The newcomer. No, he was illegal. And I say he was an illegal alien. He was an illegal immigrant. He was an illegal migrant. And he shouldn't have been in our country, and he never would have been under the Trump policy. And Biden should be apologizing for apologizing to this killer. Joe Biden and you understand what's happening here. Joe Biden has no remorse. He's got no regret. He's got no empathy, no compassion, and worst of all, he has no intention of stopping the deadly invasion that stole precious Lakin's beautiful American life. We are profoundly honored to be joined today by the family and loved ones of Lakin and some of her great friends. I met them. They're so incredible. The whole group is incredible. To Lakin's parents, John and Allison, and her sister, Lauren, her roommate, Connolly, and to all of those who loved Lakin, the hearts of hundreds of thousands and indeed millions and millions of Americans and people worldwide, they're shattered alongside of your beautiful hearts. We share your grief. We share your grief. Thank you, darling. Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. I know how tough it is. That's so tough. We vow to keep Lakin's memory alive for as long as we are here on this earth, and we take comfort that she is now home with God in heaven. And I want to thank you, and thank you for being here. Incredible. I know how tough it is. Incredible. What Joe Biden has done on our border is a crime against humanity and the people of this nation for which he will never be forgiven. That's a very hard thing. We're going to fix it. We're going to fix it fast. We're going to have the largest deportation in history. But what a tremendous shame that this could have happened in our country. What a shame. Laken Riley would be alive today if Joe Biden had not willfully and maliciously eviscerated the borders of the United States and set loose thousands and thousands of dangerous criminals into our country. To her family tonight, I promise you, I will demand justice for Laken. Justice for Laken. Thank you. Thank you very much. Incredible. I will fight like no one has ever fought before to ensure that what happened to this American daughter, this incredible, incredible American, that this never happens to any other daughter or anyone else ever again. We will do everything we can that it doesn't happen again. And you know it will, because unfortunately we have so many people allowed into our country that shouldn't be, but we're going to get it down to a trickle. We're not going to let this go on. Our country is being destroyed by an incompetent president, and we're not going to let this happen. I mean, the good thing about his speech, if you want to call his rant the other night, he probably did well enough that he's not going to be replaced on the ballot, because they were talking about replacing him. And I said, you know, he got through it, barely, but he got through it. I think he's possibly going to make it. Nobody thought he was. I sort of didn't think. I guess maybe I still don't think. I mean, when that's the best that a party can do, we're in big trouble. And, you know, they always talk about, it's so interesting. I watch these criminals back there, the press. Look at them. Look at how many of them. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. Wow. I always say they should endorse me because I'm the best thing that ever happened to their ratings. They should endorse me.
Hey, gang, what's up? How are you folks today?
But I say it, and I say it all the time. I say we have to have a free press. We have to have an honest press in this country. They're like the police. We need our police. We need an honest press. We need free and fair elections. We don't have free and fair elections. We have very corrupt elections, and we need borders. And we had the safest border in the history of our country. Now we have the most unsafe border in the history of the world. But we need a free and fair press. And they're totally wise to you. You know, the people are wise to these people. And I'm not saying all of them. I'd say about 94.2% are bad. If you say to all Americans, I will seal the border, I'm going to do it. and I will stop this invasion. I'm going to do it. I will stop the killing. I will stop the bloodshed. I will end the agony of our people, the plunder of our cities, the sacking of our towns, the violation of our citizens, and the conquest of our country. They're conquering our country. These people are conquering our country. They're horrible people. You know, we have China, we have Russia, we have Kim Jong-un, we have all sorts of countries out there. But if you have a really capable president, like me, I mean, I will tell you. Believe me, you were very safe. You were very safe. But the real problem is not from them. A competent president can handle them. You can say, really, you're going to do that to us? We're going to tariff the hell out of you. We're going to do this. Believe me, I had them all in good shape. They were all, you were never in any trouble. Kim Jong-un of North Korea, tough guy. But we had a great relationship. You know, they hate when they say that. You know why? Because you were very safe. You had a lot of nuclear weapons. And, you know, you have Putin now talking nuclear all the time, don't you? You know why? Because he knows we have an idiot as a president, and he can get away with that. He can get away with that. But the biggest threat we have, it's the threat from within. It's the radical left lunatics that we have in our country. That's a much bigger threat than outside threats, I will tell you right now. We can handle the outside pretty easily if you're smart. If you're stupid, they'll continue to rip you off. But the bigger threat is from what we have inside. Remember, I used to say, if we don't start changing, we're going to be Venezuela on steroids. That's where we're handling. We're heading right to it. Remember, Trump was right about everything, right? The hat. Trump was right. I don't want to be right about these things. You have to be careful, too, of World War III. I'm not going to let that happen. You're not going to have it. But right now, you're very close to a world war on this whole mess that we're in. When I left, we had no problem. Everybody was respecting us. They respected the president and they respected the country. We had no problem. Now we have problems all over the place. I had dinner last night with a great gentleman from Hungary, Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban. Very, very tough. Some people don't like him because he's very tough, and they were interviewing him 2 months ago. He said it again yesterday, actually. I appreciate it. It's very nice. It's good if you're running for office, I guess. But he said the problem with America is they need Trump back as president. When Trump was president, there were none of these problems. Israel wouldn't have been attacked. Ukraine and Russia wouldn't be fighting. I knew Putin. I know him very well. There was no way he was going in. No way Putin was going in. Putin would never have gone in under any circumstances, but then they gave him added incentive. The things Biden said were the exact opposite things. I said, you know, he's going to talk this guy into going in. You listen to the way he talked. He had no idea what he was doing. And then you look at what happened to energy. Energy went up so high. Russia's one of the biggest in the world for energy. So they had now so much money to do. They wouldn't have had it at $40 a barrel. At $100 a barrel, they were making a fortune. The only one ever to make a fortune doing a war. And that's what happened. This guy is a disaster, and he has to be taken out. You're going to end up, if he's not relieved of his office on November 5th, we have done one of the great disservices to humanity because he is not capable to be your president. Not capable. You'll end up in a world war as sure as you're sitting or standing there. We have standing room only. The press hates to say that, you know. They never talk about the size. We haven't had an empty seat in years. Jim Jordan knows that. A long time ago, I did one in Ohio. And Jim said, man, there's like 10,000 people outside. They can't. That was the beginning, right, Jim? And we saved Whirlpool, and we saved some great companies up there, and now they're doing good. They had little problems like they weren't allowed to have water go into their washing machines. You know, minor little problems. But we took care of it. We took care of the dumping. They were dumping from South Korea and from China. They were dumping washing machines, dryers. And we took care of it, and they love us up there. We love them. And they love this whole family. I tell you, they love this whole family up there. But we have to straighten out our country. We have to do it fast. And we don't have that much time anymore. You know, even 7 months is a long time. We're waiting, and it's at the end of 7 months. In other words, it's closer to 8 than it is to 7. And the destruction that they are doing to our country. This is a long time. This is a very risky period. This is the most dangerous period in the history of our country, in my opinion. It's the most dangerous time. And that's because of nuclear weapons and other types of weapons that are so powerful. But nuclear weapons, but other types too, that are so powerful. This is no longer army tanks going back and forth shooting each other. This is big stuff. And we have a man that has no clue. If I said to him, give me the definition of MAGA, I don't know. Why do you ask that? I said, just give it. It's make America great again, Joe. He wouldn't be able to tell you. We have to stop MAGA. How about where he goes, we have to stop MAGA. We will stop MAGA. We will stop. I said, what does MAGA mean? I don't know, really. Tell me, what does it mean? Make America great again. Let's stop that. That's what they're doing. They are stopping it. You know, if they use their genius, because they are a genius at cheating at elections and things, but they're not a genius on policy or common sense. They have no common sense. But if they use their ability, their genius on making America great again, I probably wouldn't have ever run. I probably would have never run. I wouldn't have to. I'd be now lounging on some beautiful beach someplace or doing something like he does, but he does it during his presidency. Somebody said he looks great in a bathing suit, right? And you know, when he was in the sand and he was having a hard time lifting his feet through the sand, because, you know, sand is heavy. They figure 3 solid ounces per foot. But sand is a little heavy. And he's sitting in a bathing suit. Look, at 81, do you remember Cary Grant? How good was Cary Grant, right? I don't think Cary Grant, he was good. I don't know, what happened to movie stars today? We used to have Cary Grant and Clark Gable and all these people. Today we have, I won't say names because I don't need enemies. I don't need enemies. I got enough enemies. But Cary Grant was like, Michael Jackson once told me, the most handsome man, Trump in the world. Who? Cary Grant. Well, we don't have that anymore. But Cary Grant at 81 or 82, going on 100, this guy, he's 81 going on 100. Cary Grant wouldn't look too good in a bathing suit either. And he was pretty good looking, right? He wouldn't. If this guy went to the beach and he enjoyed himself and he left our border policies alone, we had the strongest, remain in Mexico, catch and release in Mexico, building the wall, the Mexican army, 28,000 soldiers protecting our border. If he just left it alone, he could have stayed at the beach and everybody would have said, boy, is he looking good. But he doesn't look good. He's got a consultant. You know, we all have consultants, but you have to think for yourself a little bit. And some consultant said, you know, I think the president would look good on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. You don't go to the beach there. I don't think that looks good. Are the voters happy when they see a president all week long at a beach? I don't think. Typically, that's not a good look. You'd like to see a president who works a little bit, right? But if he would have left our policies in place and our policies on energy, now I will say he brought them back because he was getting killed. So he let him drill more. But as soon as this election were over, should the unthinkable happen, he will stop all of the drilling. He's only doing it because he was getting absolutely killed, so he went back to the Trump drilling. But even at that, he gave up Anwar, the biggest site ever in the world, probably bigger than Saudi Arabia. Some people, that's in Alaska, Anwar. So it's a shame what's happening to our country. It's so sad. When I'm with people and we start talking about it and they're from other countries, it's embarrassing. On day one of my new administration, I will terminate every open border policy of the Biden administration, and we will use every tool at our disposal to rid our country of the monsters who Joe Biden set loose to threaten and kill innocent Americans. Because what we just discussed is happening to many people, many, many people. People are being killed every single day by these monsters. How about New York? They just put military on the subways, military, because the illegals, as he refuses to say, the migrants, were harming passengers. I mean, think of it. You're going to work for years and years. You're an accountant, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you're a carpenter. You're going to work on the subways. And now they're like a military installation. And you know why? Because the migrants are hurting people. They talk about the beautiful dream of migrants. It sounds so nice, you know, like in a fairy tale book. But some of these people are monsters, a big percentage of. If you go to El Salvador, Honduras, if you go to numerous of the countries, but we're really talking all over the world. The other day from Africa, the Congo, They had numerous prisoners caught from the Congo. The good news is they all make our prisoners look like very nice people, because our people are much nicer. Our prisoners are vicious, horrible people in many cases, in most cases perhaps. But you know what? When you look at the people that are being allowed to come all over the world, they're emptying their prisons, they're emptying their mental institutions into the United States of America. What can be good about that? What? Is there any reason that that can be good? They're probably thinking they can vote, but they cheat, so they don't really have to do that. They can do it without doing it because they cheat so much. But what can be good about that? And how can that even be good politically? I think there's a movement. I think one of the reasons, I think you like me the same. You had 4 great years. We had the greatest economy in history. You had 4 great years, and people looked at, but I think you like me the same. Let's say you like me the same. You know, they always like to say, 2 very unpopular people are running. I'm not unpopular. I'm at 92 or 94% in the Republican Party. Ronald Reagan was at 86%. It's fake news. These are fake news people. Is that right, Marjorie? No, they always like to equate me with this guy. 2 very unpopular people are running for office. I said, why am I unpopular? I just knocked off 12 people in the quickest time that it's ever happened. I don't know if you know that. It's the fastest it's ever. It's never happened that quick. And in Iowa, in New Hampshire, in South Carolina against a governor of South Carolina, in Nevada, every single state I ran in, we won by a margin that was a substantial record. In Iowa, we won by the highest margin in history times 2. We would double the highest margin. In New Hampshire, I got the most votes in the history of the state of New Hampshire. Now think of this for a second. New Hampshire, and it's up there in, you know, Kennedy territory, right? JFK ran. I got more votes than JFK. A lot of great people, historic people ran. And that's in either party. I got more votes than anybody in either party. In Nevada, I got unbelievable. We got 98% of the caucus votes, and then won the primary too, even though I wasn't running in the primary. I wasn't even running in it because it didn't matter, because it didn't equate to delegates, right? And then we go to other states, but we go to South Carolina, and against a popular and competent but very nasty person, but a competent person, we won in a record. It wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. Think of it. And then we had this beautiful, magnificent couple of states, which, by the way, we won. But then we had our 15 states, Super Tuesday. Every state was like in a record. I think in California it was close to 90% to 9%. And 1% undecided. I said, who are the people that are undecided? 1%, they always have undecided, you know? And I have to say that because they'll say, oh, he doesn't add well. It was 90 to 9. No, there were some people undecided for the fake news. You know, it's a problem. If I have fun and I want to be a little sarcastic, because I'm a somewhat sarcastic person, I have humor. You know why I have humor? Because if I didn't, and I'm looking at what this guy has done to our country, you have to have a little humor. But sometimes I'll imitate, because you know he can never find his way off a stage. You know that, right? He makes a speech that lasts for about 2.5 minutes, and then, then he always goes, you know, do you ever notice the weirdest thing? He goes, thank you. And he points. No, he always points. And then he starts walking, and they're waving him to the other. It's the other stair. And he goes around and doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He's lost. Then he'll walk off the back of the stage where there's no stair and fall down. No, I mean, you know, but here's the problem. Whenever I imitate that, they put me on saying I couldn't get off the stage. So I have to be very careful. When I substitute Barack Hussein Obama, has anybody ever heard of Barack Hussein Obama? And I use his name instead of... And I say, our president, Barack Hussein Obama, meaning who's calling the shots. Does everyone sort of understand it? The fake news says, he doesn't know the name of our president. He doesn't know it's Joe Biden. he must be cognitively impaired. I'm not cognitively. And you know what? When I am, you're going to know it. You're going to be the first people. I know my people. You'll say, all right, Trump, you did a good job. Get the hell out of here. That's it. That's it. No, these are very dishonest people. No, I called my wife. I said, baby, how was that? Just tell me. How good was I tonight? She watches it like she loves it, right? She said, you were good, but it's a little embarrassing. Why? They showed you couldn't find the stairs on the stage. I said, they did that to me. They did that. Because it's almost impossible. These things, in this case, we only have 4 stairs. It's a small platform. Look, I have one there, believe it or not, and one here, one there. You had 3, and he can't find them, and they're right alongside of each other. And they all work, you know? I don't know, government must have built it because you got one platform and you have stairs all over the place. Built by government. Crazy. So I have to be very careful. I can't be sarcastic, can't be fun. You can't mix names, purposely mix names. You know, purposely. In his State of the Union this week, Crooked Joe told a total fairy tale about the economy. But the fact is, under Biden, we have a 3-year inflation rate of almost 50%. Under me, you had no inflation. You had no inflation. Under Bidenomics, the United States has lost 284,000 good full-time jobs in the past year and replaced them with hundreds of thousands of part-time jobs and a lot of government jobs. That's not fair. I could do that too. Let's hire some more people, make me look good. In addition, virtually 100% of all jobs created under Biden have gone to foreign-born workers. How do you feel about that? Good? And I'll tell you this, the biggest problem that you're going to see from all of these millions and millions, I think the number is 15 million people already. I think it'll be 18 to 20 million people by the time we get rid of this guy. And the biggest, think of it, that's bigger than New York State. I think it's going to be close to 20 million people. That's my prediction. But I think it's already 15 million people. Black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, and unions. Unions are going to suffer. I mean, I'm all for everybody. I'm for the worker. But unions, they should endorse Trump because I'm closing our border good and tight. And if you're going to come into our country, you're coming in legally. You're going to come into our country legally. In February alone, nearly 1 million jobs held by native-born Americans disappeared by one. Think of that. You lost 1 million jobs. Black people, that's who lost the jobs. Hispanic people, that's who lost the jobs. That's why we just had a poll come out. Now, it doesn't sound great, but it is great relative. You know, a guy, a stiff like Mitt Romney, I think he had 4% of the black vote. I had, as of this poll today, Marjorie, 28%. If that's the case, this election is over. If that's the case. If that's the case, I'll ask some of our great Congress people. We have great ones. We're going to introduce them in a second. But why don't we just call the election over? Because at 28%, and I hope that stays that way. But you know what? And I hope it goes up higher. It should be much higher. Honestly, it should be 100% of the black people should vote for Trump. Because I did more for black people than any president other than Abraham Lincoln. It's true. It's true. I did more than any president other than Abraham Lincoln. Think of it. Criminal justice reform. I took care of the black colleges and universities. They would come up to Washington. After 3 years, they said, why do you guys keep coming back? One of them, I got friendly with some of them, really good people. They said, every year we come back looking for money. They do a great job. Black colleges and universities, they have very little money. And then you look at Harvard and these maniacs, and they have billions and billions of dollars. Very unfair. We're going to have to look into that whole situation. We're going to have to. And Elise did a very good job when she destroyed that person, the big plagiarizer from Harvard. I think did she plagiarize every document she ever wrote? I think so. The only thing she had going for her was nice glasses, if you like that look. No, Elise did a fantastic job. We all know that. She was amazing, and it really revealed what they were all about. But I took care of the black colleges, universities, opportunity zones. Tim, does everybody know? Tim Scott. So I shouldn't say, he'll get angry, but I tell him this all the time. So, you know, when we win and people come on, and many people, as soon as you win, I have calls from people that you wouldn't believe. People that were so nasty to me, now they're going, sir, we'd love to come over and make amends. You know, I've always felt you were the best candidate. I think you're fantastic. You know, people that were with the sanctimonious, they were with other people. Well, I'm not going to use that name anymore. It's not respectful. Let's call him Ron DeSantis. People that were with DeSantis were with Nikki. They were with her. Now they're calling saying, sir, congratulations. I've been so busy, sir. I haven't had time to make the call, but now that I'm freed up a little bit, would it be possible for me to come? I'd like to support. I said, I thought you were with DeSantis. Oh, sir, not really, sir. You know, those were false reports. Great comprehension, always had great comprehension, great memory. Oh, I said, oh, no, you were with them. Let's just look it up. The great thing about, one of the only good things about the internet, you press a button and it gives you the whole history of some guy. But they're all calling me Jim, and they're all saying, sir, I'd love to I'll give you names. I'd love to reveal them right now, but I'll give you names that you wouldn't believe. We've got to stop Trump. He's an insurrectionist. Then 2 weeks later, sir, I'd love to be part of their campaign. I think I could really help. These are phony people. So 90% of them we won't take back, and it could be 100. Could be 100. But with your vote, we will throw out Bidenomics and we will reinstate MAGAnomics. MAGAnomics. Right? You know, I have to explain to the audience, because, you know, I figure, what the hell? It's a Saturday afternoon. We have a little time. You know where I'm going later? I'm going to the UFC fights. You know why? You know why? It's the closest thing I can see that's really reflective of the election process that we have in this country. The UFC fights. That may be a little tamer than the election business, right? But I'll be going to the UFC fights with some friends, and I look forward to that. Dana Whitey's done a great job. I look forward to that. Oh, I hope he doesn't run for office against me. No, he's done a fantastic job. He likes that. No, he likes that because it's an easier business than politics. There's nothing like this. But I have to say that we have a country with tremendous potential, and if we turn that potential and use that potential, we're going to come back. A lot of people think we can't come back. It's too far down the line. It's not. If we don't win this election, it is. I don't think it can ever come back. It's never going to come back. It's too much. But we have tremendous people in the country, tremendous spirit. As I said, it's the greatest spirit I've ever seen, and I'm down to it. This is my third time. I'm going to have to win it 3 times. 3 times. But we're going to turn it around. And we will cancel Biden's work permits for illegals and protect American jobs for American workers. We will immediately end Biden's war on American energy, and we will end his inflation catastrophe, and we will drill, baby, drill, right? You know, I gotta interrupt. You know, the fake news will say, oh, he goes from subject to... No, you have to be very smart to do that. You got to be very smart. It's called, you know what it is? It's called spot checking. You're thinking about something when you're talking about something else, pop, and then you get back to the original, and they go, holy shit, did you see what he did? That's something. It's called intelligence. But so I have a problem, because we get so much television coverage, and look at the size. There's never been rallies like this. You know, I had 100,000, 105,000 people, depending. If we wanted a much bigger room than this is the biggest room you could get. We didn't want to have rain on you. We have a lot of people outside that wanted to get in, but every place is packed. The problem is, I've got front row Joes over here. And I've got the most beautiful women in the world, in my opinion, from North Carolina. These 40 incredible women, and they come to so many shows. They're up to 117. I won't even tell you how many front row. Front row Joe's like up to close to 200.
So we're going to change things over again. We're going completely in a different direction just to see like what the audience likes. I don't know. We're transferring over to Jordan Peterson. Like, that should be pretty fun. Let's see how that goes.
I have no clue that in 2023 the best way to make money on Amazon is not with physical products.
Too many, most of them.
It's Amazon's other company.
We have to give a little action for these people. So we're telling you some stories
is an
tonight
attempt to distinguish what makes Christianity different from Judaism other than Christ. Because Christianity and Judaism, in most of their main philosophies, have an awful lot in common. It's interesting. I just interviewed a fellow named John MacArthur, who's a major pastor, major Christian theologian. I interviewed him a couple of days ago for our Sunday special. And this came up. I asked him, so where do you think the differences are between Christianity and Judaism? And he basically said, Jesus, right? That's the difference. Mm-hmm. And I think that that is the mostly honest answer, because when I hear Christian theologians try to distinguish Judaism from Christianity, what they say about Judaism I find to be not accurate as to what Judaism actually says.
What's up, YouTube? Hope you guys are feeling good. Today, guys, we're back again with a new video, guys. This is going to be intense and really beautiful because it's Jordan Peterson versus Ben Shapiro about Christianity. I would seriously love to check this out. So let's get to chat together, guys.
This is where I think we could have an interesting conversation about the relationship between Judaism and Christianity. So there's an idea in Christianity, which is, I think, the central idea, which is that you need to face the potential for malevolence that exists within you and in the world. So that's Christ's confrontation with the devil in the desert, with Satan in the desert. You have to come to terms with that malevolence. That's part of existence. And you have to voluntarily accept the burden of suffering. And so that's the acceptance of the cross. Okay, so you take on that, you say the suffering, so there's an idea that Christ is a messianic figure because he took the suffering of the world onto himself. And what that means to me is that he was someone, speaking conceptually, who decided that the suffering of the world was his responsibility, and that that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to decide that that's your responsibility. You take that on as a burden. You do the same with the malevolence. So when you read history as a perpetrator, right? Maybe you also read it as a victim, but you certainly read it as a perpetrator. And then that's on you. Okay, so then the question is, what happens when you do that? And I would say the answer is two things, is that, first of all, it starts to force you to develop, like to learn what you need to learn in the world and to absorb the information that would enable you to start to face the suffering and to rectify it. So that forces you to become a more competent person, and that's the socialization part that you thought of as so important. But then there's a secondary thing that happens too, which is that taking on that additional stress and demand voluntarily transforms you biologically, because within your genetic structure, let's say, there's all sorts of potential, but that won't be unlocked unless you place yourself in a position where the demands necessitate it. And so by following that pathway, truth, let's say, the acceptance of suffering and the confrontation with malevolence, so that's the heaviest load that you could take on, then you actually produce a psychophysiological / spiritual transformation in yourself that matures you into like the representation of the Father on earth. That's why that's how that lays itself out.
I'm glad he got us here, because the question that I said to you, there was only one thing I said to you guys before we started, that I wanted to get to something about most of the lectures that when we're doing these things, you're usually talking about the Old Testament. Now, obviously, you're an Old Testament guy.
I'm fond of it,
but my question was, do you think that Ben, or just people that believe in the Old Testament exclusively, are missing something? So you just laid out a case of something that potentially is missing there. Do you think that is a fair argument?
Well, what I'm going to argue is that what you just said is fundamentally unchristian, in the sense that you're saying that everyone is supposed to imitate Jesus. And the basic conceit of, from what I understand, speaking with Christian theologians, is that we are fundamentally incapable of taking on our own sin. And so we have to have somebody who comes in the form of Christ on earth in order to accept that suffering for us. and that is the purpose of God actually embodying himself in Christ, is to provide human beings the capacity to withdraw from original sin, that we don't actually have the capacity beyond a certain point to overcome, and that's why Jesus as a singular figure is necessary. I actually agree from a Judaic point of view with everything that you say, because for me it's about accepting responsibility for my own sins on myself, and I don't have the ability to say that there is the suffering servant, the suffering Lamb of God, who sacrificed himself to relieve me of my sins, and therefore give me a fair shot at life.
Yeah, well, okay, that's a really good objection, I think, and I think that there's a fair bit of confusion about that in the Christian community, for example. So I would say that perspective is more explicitly Protestant, and then I would put the Catholics next to that, but then I would put the Orthodox types fairly far away from that, which is why so many Orthodox Christians, I think, have been interested in what I'm saying, because their sense, and this is where my knowledge of Christian theology starts to run out, because like I'm not an expert on, you know, in the doctrinal differences.
Right.
Their sense is that it's the imitation that's of primary importance. Now, it's a weird thing, because even in classical Christianity, you have, let's say Protestant Christianity, you have this idea that, well, Christ died to save us all from our sins, and so we're already redeemed. But that doesn't alleviate the moral burden, weirdly enough, because you'd think it should. So there's this paradox. And I think I think part of the reason for that, this is an extraordinarily complicated thing, but in the Brothers Karamazov, Christ comes back to earth.
Right.
And in Seville during the Spanish Inquisition, and so he's doing his miracles and raising people from the dead and like being all messianic, and the first thing that happens is the Inquisitor arrests him, throws him in prison, and then comes to visit him and basically says, look, the last thing we need after setting up this church for 2,000 years is you. You're a lot of trouble. You've put a moral burden on human beings that's too much for them to bear. And so what we've done is watered it down and put some intermediaries in place so that the moral demand that your example required doesn't just crush people into nothingness, right? So every ideal is a judge.
Right.
So then you have the ultimate ideal. That's the ultimate judge. And from the Inquisitor's point of view, that judge was too much. It was too demanding. And so I think there's so anyway, so the Inquisitor goes through all this argument and says, we're going to have to, you know, get rid of you again because you're just too much to bear. And so Christ listens and doesn't say anything. And then just when the Inquisitor stands to leave, Christ kisses him on the lips, and the Inquisitor turns white in shock and then leaves, but he leaves the door open. And that's the brilliant ending of Dostoevsky's piece.
The Grand Inquisitor,
Yeah, and what makes him such a genius, because he basically says something like, well, look, the Catholic Church did reduce the burden, and it is corrupt in the way that earthly organizations are likely to be corrupt. And it does allow an out, which is, well, you can put your sins on Christ, let's say, and that alleviates your... burden, but it still keeps the damn door open.
Well, this is why I think it's really fascinating, having spent a lot of time with Christian theologians in the past couple of years writing this book, is that the original conceit, I think, when you talk with people who are Christian and Jewish and you have sort of interfaith conversations, the original one-sentence conceit and the difference between them is that what you'll hear from Jews is Judaism is acts-based and Christianity is faith-based. Christianity is about the acceptance of Christ. When you accept Christ, then you've accepted what you need to accept, and everything flows therefrom. And Judaism says it's not just about accepting God, it's all these mitzvot, right? There are all these commandments that you have to do, and these are what perfect you as a human being. It's the performance of these commandments, accepting God's sovereignty because he's the one who gave the commandments, but you actually have to act in the world, and if you don't act in the world, then you haven't fulfilled your responsibility in the world.
This could also be an argument why you could have, although I know you wouldn't be thrilled with them per se, you could have Jewish atheists in that they believe that it's just their actions here.
Yes, 100%. So this is why Jews have had and I think most Christians believe this too. The idea of having a moral atheist is not really a difficult idea. It's the idea of having a system built on atheism that's completely immoral and will fall apart almost immediately, and the idea of having a moral system built on atheism, if you examine your atheism closely enough, I think falls apart. I think that moral atheism is basically you separating your morality from your atheism and then ignoring your atheism in pursuit of the morality, which is, well, you can live fine that way, that's fine, but I don't think that that's psychologically sustainable if you actually examine the core of your ideas. But with that said, I think that Christianity, after its original millenarian viewpoint, when Christianity first came about, the idea of Christ on earth was that he had ushered in the Messianic era, because it was a new era, it was a new day, and then it turns out that people looked around and went, well, this looks a lot like the old day, right? Not that much has changed. And so what changed? What changed was our spiritual status. That was the new redefinition of the Messianic era, is that what Christ had brought to earth was a new spirit, right? He brought a new spirit into the earth, and he'd cleansed people of their sins and given them a fresh shot at life, basically. And that in doing so, he'd changed the nature of how things work. Well, Judaism basically said, well, we never thought that nature changed in the first place, right? That's something different. And so, ironically enough, I think one of the sources of Christian anti-Semitism over time is an attempt to distinguish what makes Christianity different from Judaism other than Christ. Because Christianity and Judaism, in most of their main philosophies, have an awful lot in common. It's interesting. I just interviewed a fellow named John MacArthur, who's a major pastor, major Christian theologian. I interviewed him a couple of days ago for our Sunday special. And this came up. I asked him, so where do you think the differences are between Christianity and Judaism? And he basically said, Jesus. Right? That's the difference. And I think that is the mostly honest answer, because when I hear Christian theologians try to distinguish Judaism from Christianity, what they say about Judaism I find to be not accurate as to what Judaism actually says. And when I hear Jews try to distinguish Christianity from Judaism, I think that, and I'm not saying they're the same thing, because they're not, obviously, they're different belief systems, but in terms of the underlying value system, the reason that we say Judeo-Christian value system is because in terms of the value system itself, the commonalities are overwhelming. They're overwhelming. The differences are mostly doctrinal and historical, and in terms of what you think, I think that Christians read back in an Acts-based version of their own lives through a variety of mechanisms, whether they say, well, predestination exists, but in order to show that if I were really elect, I would be acting this way, right? That is an Acts-based version. It's just retroactive from the end. And so this is why if you say to a Christian, so you really believe that you can lead a terribly dissolute, awful, terrible life, but if you believe in Christ with the full fiber of your being, you're going to heaven? And they'll say, and many of them will say, yes, but then you say, but what makes a good person? And they'll say, right, not, but if, and what they'll always add, but if you believe in Christ, you wouldn't do all those things.
Well, right? You can't take away Christ from Christianity. That is our foundation. That is what we stand on. Christ. You can't, according to what Ben said, say, well, if they take away Christ, what makes us the same? You can't take away Christ from Christianity. It is impossible. That is what we're Christ-like. Christianity means Christ-like. You can't take away Christ from Christianity. It's like you're building a house without a foundation. It can't stand. That is just how it is. You can't take away Christ from Christianity. It's impossible. So I feel like there shouldn't be any debate here. But the debate was intense. I kind of learned a lot about the Bible scholars, but also about Judaism by Ben right here, because he kind of enlightened me more better. I feel like, wow.
You know I'm grinding like a pro skater, baby mama bugging, I'm so quick to hit ignore.
Sorry, I always sound like a goof when I don't time it right with the microphone setups or whatever. And I was on mute there just a moment ago. We're going to wrap up, guys. We've been on here a few hours, which is so fun. David, take a chill pill. Everybody else, it's so much fun hanging out with you guys. Like, we're growing a community here, guys. It's amazing. We watch not just Canadian federal politics, but lots of other things too. And we'll get better at that, I assure you. I feel like we're starting to do something that a lot of people wouldn't be able to do, like, but we're going to be able to do it, which is like that the audience tells you what they want to watch, because nobody is more aware than the audience. Like, you can't fool an audience. They tell you, like, what is the hot stuff. Like, for instance, today I started this podcast with Pierre Poilievre, and then during the podcast, it's like, that's not the newest thing. Poilievre is live. And I don't know how to manage that with the system I have, but I started looking for that, trying to run what I was running at the same time. Eventually I found it, and it was awesome. And then people start, not people, like people that are watching, like interested viewers, which I appreciate, start sending like, oh, well, Trump is speaking. And it's like, well, we kind of do Canadian stuff here first, but once this Poilievre bit is done, maybe we'll take a look at Trump. I find that interesting, don't you? And so then we started watching Trump, and then we flipped over to something else. So again, what we're afraid to try and what we're not afraid to try, those are pretty much our limits, and we're not afraid to try anything at all. We don't want to shut down the channel, but we don't want to be a coward either. Like, it's been so much fun this afternoon hanging out with everybody. Hey, Dan. Hey, David. Mike. Rockos. All you guys. Like, people, it's great here. We're just learning and trying to share Canadian politics and some other forms of politics, I guess, with the rest of the world. That's it. I'm Ehren, Question Period Canada. It's been a really fun, silly Sunday afternoon. God bless. All that stuff. And we'll catch you next video. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time. Have something healthy to eat. Stay warm today. David, we'll talk again. Just be nice to my crowd. Like, this community bud is not worth screwing around with. Like, it's just the wrong place. Anyhow, take care, y'all. Thanks for watching.